Always worth it. Flip up to that laydown, I get four cranks in. 1, 2, 3, boom! Oh my gosh! And I get like, thing hits the rail, get it in, it's like a 7.5. My marshal's like, holy, and I'm like, we're all just like screaming, hugging each other. It was a good time. You guys can go back on my YouTube and actually watch that video. So now it's 12:30 and I got myself a 7.5 pounder in the boat. I'm like, okay, I like where this is going. I go around, little things start kind of showing me, okay, this is actually the time where it's gonna go down. It started to sleet. Actually, when I was outside getting my rods out of the truck, it reminded me a lot about today. I was like, it's freezing out. It's cold enough that it might even snow, and there's a whole bunch of like overcast and stormy weather. I'm like, it might go down. Picked up a Magdraft, went down a bluff wall. Boom, 7.5 pounder. I'm like, ooh, I think we got him going now. Figured it out. I got a little deal going. Okay. Found bluff walls, hard structure, laydowns and whatnot. All right, ran that, boom, caught another 4 pounder, caught another 4 pounder, caught another 3 pounder. Ended up with 20, I don't know, I think it was like 25.5 pounds or something like that. Ended up biggest bag of the tournament. And if it wasn't for that short fish that I caught on day 1 and brought to the scales, it costed me my very first top 10. I missed the top 10 by ounces. By like 4, it was something so close. I was so pissed. I'm like, man, you kidding me? Lesson learned. It's fine. Everything's a lesson. It was lesson learned. So yeah, that's just a little story on how swim baits can turn a day around, and especially if you're enjoying fishing them. That was Lake Chickamauga. So we're going to talk about spark shads first. And one of my favorite baits, one of the most versatile baits. I don't know how long this is going to take to get around the room, and if it just disappears, it just happens. I don't know. I like to get it back, please. But the bait that I'm passing around is a spark shad, and that is on a different head. This is actually a Bastrix Live Tricks head, and it just shows the capability of different ways to present the bait. This is, I believe, there's a 90-degree line tie on it. Other swim bait heads, jig heads and whatnot, have the line tie up front. So just, you could just shout them out. What are ways to rig a swim bait? Oh, come on, guys. Like, I'm the one up on the stage. You don't got to be shy. Belly weight. Okay, weedless. Good, that's one. Line through. Ooh. That's a Texas deal. I already know. Everyone's like, line through. And I'm like, that's how I know I'm in Texas. All right. What up? Drop shot? Regular jig head? Weightless. Okay. You guys know. Now, do you know when to apply them? When you're trying to catch fish. Exactly. No. It's the cool thing is, as with each individual size of the spark shad, for me, this is kind of like bread and butter when it comes to swim baits. Because one, this guy has a keeled belly, realistic eyes, it's soft enough where the tail comes down to a really thin little section, it gets a ton of kick. This little 3-inch bait catches big ones, and its 5-inch bigger brother catches bigger ones. Doesn't mean that elephants won't eat peanuts, though. There's always an exception to the rule. Remember, fishing, there's no rules. There's general guidelines that the fish themselves like to break all the time. So, like you guys said, there's different, you got like, the one that's being passed around, that's pretty cool. So that one could be used for, I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but for everyone how many people got a scope on their boat? Okay, how many people don't have a scope on their boat? Oh, it's like 50-50. Cool, it's good to see. If you guys didn't know, that's how I qualified for the elites. without one of those. I didn't have a scope on my boat. I had a small little graph like this. Oh, you guys, oh man, all right. I guess it's a feat now, right? Because everyone's like, man, you got a scope to win. That's not true. You can put your head down, learn how to read the bank and fish, old school, and still get it done. I'm proof of that. So we're gonna dive into different ways to rig it. So you guys nailed it on the head. Ball heads, weightless, weedless, Okashira screw head, which is this guy. How many people has heard or have heard of the Okashira screw head? I don't see a lot of hands. Okay, this is good. I mean, it's funny because people are like, that's the Okashira something, some rather. Okashira screw head. Yeah, it's a trippy Japanese name to use, but you know what? This thing gets them. The first time I fished this thing, I was on this super pressured lake in California. And the conditions were right for spinnerbait, chatterbait, all that. It was kind of windy. Visibility was like 2 foot. I'm like, why aren't we getting bit right now? We could see the fish. It was my buddy Oliver and I had the scope on his boat, and we're looking around. And he's like, throw that screw head. I'm like, whatever. What, that little toy thing? I'm like, we're not gonna get bit on that. What is that, crappie jig? You know? Saw a couple fish suspended, fired out over to him. Slow rolled it. Long cast, rod tip down, slow roll. Tick, just like a crappie bait. Just like how a crappie would eat it. Small, tick, and I did. The first one I swung, and I pulled it away from that fish. And he's like, don't swing, just reel into it. And I'm like, what? I'm like, all right, fire it out again. Start reeling in. Tick. It took every ounce of me not to swing. I reeled into that thing and came tight, 4-pounder. I'm like, oh, all right. Cast out again. You guys guessed it, another 4-pounder. This is a super pressured lake in California. And there's guys bank fishing. There's like 15 other boats on an impoundment that's less than 3,000 acres. Tiny little pond. Not tiny little pond, but you know what I'm saying, small lake. That's what opened my eyes to at least this rigging in particular, the Okashira screw head. How many people are familiar with spy baits? Okay, good amount. All right, spy baits are another finesse style, not a swim bait, its own category, but with the Okashira screw head, it imparts a certain aspect that the spy bait brings to a bait. And what is that? That's turbulence, that's vibration in the face. So what makes this blade unique is that one blade is bigger than the other blade. They're not the same size